My new boss is the woman I hooked up with last night. Her pheromones shouldn't have lingered. They should have stayed trapped in the neon glow of that downtown bar, tangled with whiskey fumes and the gritty rhythm of the live band. Gone by sunrise like all the other reckless choices I'd made to celebrate my promotion. But as I pushed through the glass doors of the executive floor, that sharp, pine-like scent of alpha hit me square in the chest, cold and familiar enough to make my breath stutter. The boardroom was already half full when I slipped in, clipboard pressed to my chest like a shield. I'd rehearsed this moment for weeks. Director Elena Marquez, newly minted market strategy lead, calm, collected, unshakable. Beta privilege, I'd always joked, no erratic pheromones, no rut or heat to derail focus. My power came from spreadsheets and deadlines, not biological luck. Then the door opened again, and the room went quiet. She walked in like she owned the place, because she did. Tailored charcoal suit, hair pulled back in a tight bun, every line of her body screaming authority. Soren Hale, the new CEO the board had been hyping for months. And the woman who'd had me pressed against the wall of her penthouse last night, her vetiver, scent drowning out my better judgment, her lips whispering things that still made my ears burn. Our eyes locked across the table. Her expression didn't flicker. No recognition, no surprise, nothing but the icy composure of a leader assessing a subordinate. But I felt it, a faint prickle of her pheromones, sharpened just enough to let me know she remembered. Alpha arrogance, I told myself. She probably did this with every beta who caught her eye. Let's begin. Her voice was low, resonant, the same tone that had murmured stay when I tried to sneak out at 5 a.m. She dropped a leather-bound folder on the table, and the sound echoed like a gavel. First order of business, restructuring the market division. Director Marquez, your team's Q3 projections are on my desk by Friday. I expect precision. My jaw tightened. Yes, Ms. Hale. The honorific tasted like ash. Last night, she'd called me Elena, rough and warm against my neck. Now I was just another name on her agenda. She didn't acknowledge the flinch. Instead, she launched into a presentation about growth targets and stakeholder alignment, her laser pointer slicing through the air with the same precision her fingers had used to trace my collarbone. I forced my gaze to the slides, but my brain was stuck on the contrast. The woman in the dark, her alpha heat, rut softened by whiskey and laughter, versus the CEO in daylight, her pheromones leashed but palpable, a predator in a power suit. Beta immunity only went so far. I could smell her faint, controlled, but there, lingering at the edge of my awareness. It was a distraction, a violation of the walls I'd built around my professional life. I'd worked too hard for this. For years of weekends, 3 burnouts, 1 promotion that had felt like winning the lottery. A one-night stand with a stranger shouldn't be able to unravel it. But then she leaned forward, and her scent sharpened. Just for a second, long enough to make my pulse race, short enough that no one else would notice. Her eyes met mine over the top of her folder, and there was a flicker of something. Not dominance. Curiosity. Like she was wondering if I'd break. I didn't. I kept my face neutral, my notes neat, my breathing steady. This was my territory. Numbers, data, strategy, I could outlast any alpha posturing. When the meeting adjourned, I grabbed my things and made a beeline for the door. I needed air, needed to reset before my next meeting. But a hand closed around my elbow halfway down the hallway, warm and firm and impossible to ignore. Elena. A word. Soren's voice was lower now, free of the boardroom's formality. I turned, and she was closer than I expected, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, close enough that her pheromones wrapped around me like a thread. Miss Hale, I said, pulling my arm away. Is there something wrong with the projections? Her lips quirked into a half smile, gone before I could process it. Nothing your team can't fix. But we need to talk about last night. My throat went dry. There's nothing to talk about. It was a mistake. A mistake. She tilted her head, and for a second, I saw the woman from the bar, the one who'd laughed at my terrible jokes, who'd touched me like I was something worth savoring. You seem to think otherwise at 2 a.m. Heat rushed to my cheeks. That was alcohol. Poor judgment. She stepped back, restoring the professional distance, but her scent lingered. Whatever it was, it stays between us. I won't have my CO title undermined by rumors, and you won't have your promotion derailed by a one-night stand. Am I clear? Alpha arrogance, pure and simple. Like I'd been the one begging to mix business with pleasure. Crystal, I said, turning on my heel. Now if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. I walked away before she could say anything else, my heart pounding. But I felt her eyes on my back the entire time, felt her pheromones, sharp and persistent, like a challenge. My office was a sanctuary. Neutral walls, organized shelves, a desk free of clutter, everything in its place, just like my life. I'd color-coded my calendar since college, drafted every email twice, avoided messy relationships like they were a contagious disease. Control was my armor, and I wore it well. Last night had been a crack in that armor. A celebration, I'd told myself. A reward for 4 years of non-stop work. I'd gone out alone, ordered a $20 cocktail, and let myself be swept up by a stranger's confidence. Soren had been magnetic, tall, sharp, unapologetically alpha, but with a smile that had softened the edge. We talked for hours, about nothing and everything, and when she'd asked if I wanted to leave, I'd said yes without thinking. No last names. No job titles. Just two people, craving something temporary. I should have known temporary didn't exist for alphas like her. They took what they wanted, and they didn't let go easily. My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. A meeting request from Soren Hale, Market Strategy Sync, 1:30 p.m., CEO office. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. This was a power play. She wanted to keep me off balance, wanted to remind me that she held all the cards. Well, two could play at that game. I arrived at her office exactly on time, clipboard in hand, ready to talk numbers and nothing else. Her assistant showed me in, and I froze. Soren was standing by the window, her suit jacket draped over the back of her chair. She'd rolled up her sleeves, revealing forearms dusted with dark hair, and her tie was loose around her neck. Without the boardroom's formality, she looked human. Still intimidating, still alpha to the core, but less like a CEO and more like the woman who'd kissed me against a wall. Her scent hit me immediately, stronger here, in the closed space of her office, unfiltered by the boardroom's crowd. And something warmer, something I couldn't place. It made my skin tingle, a beta's rare reaction to an alpha's pheromones. I blamed it on proximity, on the memory of last night. Take a seat. She gestured to the chair across from her desk, but her eyes didn't leave me. I sat, keeping my back straight, my clipboard on my lap. Your team's Q1 results were impressive, she said, opening a folder. But Q2 is flat. I need growth, Elena. Not stagnation. She was all business now, her voice crisp, her focus sharp. I relaxed, this I could handle. I launched into my plan, a new social media campaign, targeted partnerships, a rebranding of the core product. I talked numbers, timelines, resources, and for a minute, it felt like any other meeting. Like she wasn't the same woman who'd had her hands on my waist, who'd breathed my name like a prayer. But then she leaned forward, and her scent shifted. Sharper, more intense, alpha dominance, but with an undercurrent of something else. Interest. Interesting strategy, she said, her fingers tapping the desk. But it's safe. Too safe. Safe gets results, I said, defending my plan. We can't afford to gamble with the brand. Gambling is how you win. She stood, walking around the desk to stand beside me. Close enough that I could feel the heat of her body, close enough that her pheromones wrapped around me like a blanket. You're a beta, Elena. You don't understand, sometimes you have to take risks. Trust your instincts. My instincts got me this promotion, I said, standing too. I didn't back down, didn't let her alpha presence intimidate me. And my instincts say your risks are just reckless. Her eyes darkened. For a second, I thought she'd snap, alpha temper, quick and fierce. But instead, she laughed. A low, rich sound that sent a shiver down my spine. Feisty, she said, her voice low. I like that. The air between us crackled. Her scent was everywhere now, overwhelming my senses, making it hard to think. I could feel the pull, the primitive beta response to an alpha's proximity, even if I didn't have the biological drive to submit. It was just chemistry. Bad, dangerous chemistry. Miss Hale, I said, forcing myself to step back. If this is about last night, I already said it won't happen again. I take my job seriously. I do too. Her smile faded, and she leaned against the desk, her legs brushing mine. Which is why I need to know if you can handle this. Can you work with me without letting distractions get in the way? I already am, I said, but my voice wavered. Because the truth was, she was a distraction. Every time I smelled her scent, every time our eyes met, I was right back in that penthouse, losing control. She nodded, but I saw the doubt in her eyes. Good. Because I'm not replacing you. You're good at your job, Elena. Exceptional, even. The compliment caught me off guard. Alphas didn't give praise easily, not genuine praise, anyway. Thank you, I said, unsure what else to say. Now go. She pushed off the desk, restoring the distance. And send those Q3 projections by Friday. No excuses. I left her office, my heart racing, my mind a mess. She was dangerous for my career, for my control, for the walls I'd built around my heart. But as I walked back to my desk, I couldn't stop thinking about the way her scent had wrapped around me, the way her eyes had darkened when I challenged her, the way she looked at me like I was more than just a subordinate. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next week was a minefield. I avoided Soren as much as possible, took the stairs instead of the elevator, ate lunch at my desk, scheduled meetings during her usual check-ins. But she found ways to corner me. A quick question in the hallway, a last-minute addition to my workload, a casual comment about my presentation that felt more like a test than feedback. Every interaction was charged. Her pheromones would spike when we were alone, sharp and intentional, like she was testing my resolve. I'd hold my ground, keep my responses professional, but my pulse would race every time. Beta or not, I wasn't immune to her. It didn't help that the office gossip was already starting. Whispers about the new alpha CEO and the ambitious beta director who'd gotten promoted right before she arrived. I heard the words favoritism and nepotism more than once, and each time I wanted to scream. I'd earned this promotion, blood, sweat, and more late nights than I could count. But in a world where alphas dominated the C-suite, no one wanted to believe a beta could get there on merit alone. Soren didn't help. She'd defend me in meetings, shut down gossip with a single alpha glare, but it only made things worse. It looked like she was playing favorites, like our professional relationship was anything but. I confronted her about it on Thursday afternoon, after overhearing two analysts joke about sleeping your way to the top. What's your game here? I asked, slamming my clipboard on her desk. Do you want everyone to think I got this job because of you? Soren looked up from her computer, her expression calm. I'm defending my employee. Is that a crime? It's making me look incompetent, I said, my voice rising. I don't need your protection. I earned this promotion on my own. Something flickered in her eyes, hurt, maybe, or frustration. I know that, Elena. But you're naive if you think this world plays fair. Alphas don't like seeing betas in positions of power, especially when they're good at it. I'm just leveling the playing field. By making everyone think we're sleeping together, I said, stepping closer. That's not leveling the field. That's sabotage. Her scent flared, sharp, defensive, alpha anger. Watch your tone. No, I said, refusing to back down. You don't get to dictate how I feel about this. Last night was a mistake, and I'm trying to move past it. But you keep pushing, keep reminding everyone that we have some kind of connection. What do you want from me? She stood, and suddenly she was inches away. Her pheromones hit me like a wave, overwhelming and intense, but there was something else beneath the anger, longing, maybe, or fear. What do I want? She said, her voice low. I want the woman who laughed at my jokes in that bar. The woman who didn't care that I'm an alpha, who challenged me instead of submitting. The woman who made me forget, just for a night, that I have to be perfect. My breath caught. I'd never seen an alpha look so vulnerable, so human. For a second, I wanted to reach out, to touch her, to tell her that I felt it too. But then I remembered the gossip, the stares, the years of hard work I'd put in. I can't be that woman for you, I said, my voice breaking. Not here. Not now. This job means too much to me. Soren's eyes darkened, and she stepped back. The vulnerability was gone, replaced by the cold alpha mask. Fine, she said, turning back to her computer. Send the projections by end of day. And next time, knock before you enter my office. I left, my eyes burning. I'd won the argument, but I felt like I'd lost something. Something I wasn't ready to name. Friday night, I went out alone. Not to celebrate, but to escape. I found a quiet bar in the Arts District, ordered a whiskey neat, and tried to forget about Soren Hale and her rock-like scent and her stupidly handsome face. But the universe had other plans. The bell above the door jingled, and she walked in. Casual this time, black jeans, a fitted t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. No suit, no CO mask, just Soren. And she was looking right at me. I froze. I should have left. Should have grabbed my coat and run. But I couldn't. I watched as she walked over, her boots clicking on the wooden floor, her scent growing stronger with every step. Mind if I join you? She asked, nodding at the empty seat across from me. I shrugged. It's a free country. She sat, and the bartender brought her a whiskey without her asking. Like she was a regular. You're not usually the type to drink alone on a Friday night, she said. You don't know what type I am, I said, taking a sip of my drink. I know you color-code your calendar, she said, smiling. I know you draft emails twice before sending them. I know you hate being late, hate mess, hate losing control. And I know you're scared that everyone will see you as just another beta who got lucky. My jaw tightened. She'd been paying attention. More attention than I'd realized. What's your point? My point is, she said, leaning forward, you don't have to be perfect with me. Last night you weren't. And it was nice. Nice. The word felt too small for what we'd shared. But it was true. For one night, I'd let go of the control, of the fear, of the need to prove myself. And it had been nice. But it was also dangerous. Last night was a one-time thing, I said, even as my heart begged me to stop. We can't do this again. Not after what happened this week. I know, she said, her voice soft. But can we at least be honest? With each other, if not with anyone else. Honesty. It was a dangerous word. But looking at her, no mask, no alpha posturing, just vulnerability, I couldn't say no. Okay, I said. Honest. Good. She took a sip of her whiskey, and her eyes never left mine. I haven't stopped thinking about you since that night. Your laugh. Your hands. The way you looked at me like I wasn't just an alpha, but a person. Heat rushed to my cheeks. I haven't stopped thinking about you either, I admitted. But that doesn't change anything. We're boss and employee. Alpha and beta. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Maybe, she said. But isn't that part of the fun? Alpha arrogance, again. But this time, it didn't annoy me. It made me smile. You're impossible, I said. Maybe, she said, smiling back. But so are you. And I like impossible. We talked for hours, just like we had the first night. About our childhoods, her strict alpha upbringing, my struggle to prove myself as a beta in an alpha world. About our fears, her fear of failing the company, my fear of never being enough. About the things we wanted her, a life beyond the CEO title. Me, a career that didn't require sacrificing my happiness. It was honest. Raw. Real. And by the time the bar closed, I was leaning across the table, my face inches from hers. Kiss me, I said, before I could overthink it. She didn't hesitate. Her hand cupped my cheek, warm and firm, and her lips met mine. Soft at first, then deeper, hungrier. Her scent wrapped around me, warm and safe, and for a second, I forgot about the office, the gossip, the rules. All I could feel was her lips, her hands, her heart beating against mine. When we pulled away, she rested her forehead against mine. This is a bad idea, she said, her breath warm against my skin. I know, I said, but I didn't move. We should stop. I know. But we didn't. We stayed there, forehead to forehead, until the bartender cleared his throat. And when we finally left the bar, she walked me to my car, her hand brushing mine. Monday, she said, squeezing my hand. We go back to being professional. No more distractions. No more this. I nodded. Monday. But as I drove away, I knew it was a lie. Because once you let an alpha like Soren Hale into your heart, you don't just go back to being professional. You don't just forget the way her lips taste, the way her scent makes you feel, the way she looks at you like you're the only thing that matters. This was a disaster. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care. Monday morning hit like a truck. I arrived at the office early, determined to stick to the plan. Professional. Distant. No more mistakes. But when I stepped off the elevator, Soren was waiting for me. Elena, she said, her voice slow. Can we talk? Before the team arrives. I hesitated. But then I saw the look in her eyes, fear, uncertainty, something else I couldn't name, and I nodded. Your office. We walked in silence, the tension thick between us. Her scent was different today, sharper, more intense. Like she was struggling to control it. Alpha rut, I realized. It must be starting. Her office was quiet, the blinds drawn. She closed the door behind us, and suddenly we were alone. Her scent hit me full force, overwhelming and intoxicating. I stumbled back, my heart racing. Soren, you're in rut, I said, my voice shaky. You should be home. Or at least on suppressants. She leaned against the door, her chest heaving. I can't. Not today. We have the investor call at 10 and the board meeting this afternoon. I can't cancel. You're not thinking straight, I said. Alpha rut makes you irrational. You need to take care of yourself. I am, she said, pushing off the door. She was closer now, her eyes stark with need. By being here. By seeing you. Her scent wrapped around me, and I felt a warmth spread through my body, something I'd never felt before, not as a beta. It was like my body was responding to hers, even though it shouldn't. Soren, I said, backing away. This is a bad idea. You're in rut. You're not yourself. I've never been more myself, she said, reaching for me. Her hand brushed my cheek, and I shivered. Elena, I need you. Not just physically. I need you. The way you challenge me, the way you make me feel human. The way you smell when you're angry. The way you smile when you think no one's looking. Her words were slurred, thick with rut-induced need, but they were honest. I could feel it in her pheromones, in the way they wrapped around me, not as a threat, but as a plea. I can't, I said, even as my body begged me to give in. If anyone finds out, if the board finds out, we'll both be ruined. Then let's be careful, she said, her forehead resting against mine. Just for today. Help me get through this. Please. The plea in her voice broke me. I'd never seen an alpha bag, never seen one so vulnerable. What do you need? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Just stay, she said. Stay close. Let me smell you. Your scent, it calms me. Beta neutrality, I guess. But it's more than that. It's you. I nodded. Okay. We stayed like that for hours, her sitting at her desk, me on the couch across from her, the distance between us small enough that her scent could reach me. She worked, her focus sharp despite the rut, but every so often, she'd look up at me, and her eyes would soften. Every so often, her scent would spike, and I'd feel a jolt of something longing, need, something I wasn't ready to name. It was dangerous. It was reckless. But it was also intimate. Like we were sharing a secret, something no one else could understand. The investor call went smoothly. The board meeting too. Soren was professional, composed, her rut hidden behind a mask of alpha control. But I knew the truth. I knew how her hands trembled when she thought no one was looking, how her breath hitched when her scent spiked, how she'd glance at me every few minutes, like I was her anchor. After the board meeting, the office emptied out. I stayed, waiting for her. She came back to her office an hour later, looking exhausted. Her scent was weaker now, the rut starting to fade. Thank you, she said, collapsing onto the couch next to me. I couldn't have done it without you. I didn't do anything, I said. You did everything, she said, turning to face me. You stayed. You didn't judge me. You didn't run. Alpha pride, I realized. They never wanted to admit they needed help. But Soren was admitting it, was looking at me like I was the answer. I leaned forward and kissed her. Soft, gentle, nothing like the hungry kisses from Friday night. This was a thank you, a promise, a risk. She kissed me back, her hand wrapping around my waist, pulling me closer. Her scent was softer now, warmer, and I melted into her. For a minute, there were no rules, no titles, no alpha and beta. Just us. But then her phone rang, and we pulled away. Reality crashing back in. She answered it, her voice back to the CEO's cool professionalism. When she hung up, she sighed. I have to go. Emergency meeting with the legal team. I nodded, standing. I should head home too. We walked to the elevator in silence. When the doors opened, she turned to me. Elena, she said. About Friday. About today. I don't regret it. Not for a second. My heart raced. Neither do I. The elevator doors closed, and I watched her go. I knew this was just the beginning, that the line between professional and personal was blurred beyond repair. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care about control. I didn't care about the rules. I cared about her. And that was the biggest risk of all. The next month was a dance. We'd meet at the bar on Friday nights, our little secret. We'd talk, we'd kiss, we'd pretend that the rest of the world didn't exist. During the week, we were professional boss and employee, nothing more. But there were little moments, a brush of hands during a meeting, a lingering glance in the hallway, a spike of her scent when she thought no one was looking. Moments that reminded us of what we had, even when we couldn't say it out loud. But secrets don't stay secret forever. It happened at the company holiday party. I'd had too much champagne, and Soren had pulled me into a quiet hallway. We'd kissed, long, deep, careless, and I'd forgotten about the cameras. Forgotten about the employees. Forgotten about the rules. A flash of light. A gasp. We pulled away, and there was Mark from the IT department, his phone in his hand. His eyes were wide, his mouth agape. "Soren." "Elena," he stammered. Soren's scent flared, sharp, protective, alpha anger. "Delete that photo, Mark. Now." Mark shook his head. "I can't. The board, they need to know. This is a conflict of interest. You're her boss, Soren. This is against company policy." "Policy be damned," Soren said, stepping forward. Her alpha dominance was in full force now, her scent overwhelming. "Delete the photo, or I'll have you fired." Mark stepped back, but he didn't delete the photo. "You can't threaten me. This is wrong. Both of you." He turned and ran, and Soren cursed. She grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the exit. "We have to go. Now." We left the party, the whispers following us. I could feel the stares, the judgment, the fear. This was it, our secret exposed, our careers hanging in the balance. Soren drove me to her penthouse, her hands white-knuckling the steering wheel. Her scent was a mix of anger and fear, sharp and chaotic. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice breaking. "I shouldn't have let that happen. I shouldn't have kissed you." She turned to me, her eyes soft. "Don't apologize. That was my fault. I shouldn't have pulled you into that hallway. I shouldn't have been so careless." "We're both at fault," I said. "But it doesn't matter now. Mark's going to show that photo to the board. They'll fire us both." Soren shook her head. "They won't fire me. I'm the CEO. But you. Elena, they'll use this to take your promotion away. To say you didn't earn it." Fear coiled in my stomach. Everything I'd worked for gone because of a kiss. Because of a secret. "I can't lose this job," I said, tears in my eyes. "I can't." Soren pulled me into her arms, her scent wrapping around me like a blanket. "You won't. I won't let you. I'll talk to the board. I'll take the blame. I'll say it was my idea, that you tried to stop me. They'll believe me. I'm an alpha. They always believe the alpha." "No," I said, pulling away. "I won't let you do that. I'm not some helpless beta who needs to be saved. I made my choices, and I'll face the consequences." Her eyes darkened. "Elena, this isn't about being helpless. This is about protecting you. I won't let your career be destroyed because of me." "It's not just because of you," I said. "I wanted this too. I wanted you. And I'd do it again. Even if it means losing everything." Something shifted in her eyes, surprise, then something softer. Affection. "You're impossible," she said, smiling through the tension. "I know," I said, smiling back. We spent the night together, no sex, just holding each other. Talking. Planning. Fearing the worst, but hoping for the best. The next morning, Soren went to the board meeting alone. I waited in her office, my heart in my throat. I knew what the board would say, what they always said. Alphas could do no wrong. Betas were disposable. But when Soren came back, her expression was calm. "They're not firing you," she said. I let out a breath. "Really?" "Really," she said, sitting next to me. "But there's a catch. We have to end things. Officially. No more secret meetings, no more kisses, no more anything. If we're going to work together, it has to be strictly professional." My heart sank. I'd known this was coming, but it still hurt. "And if we don't? Then they'll demote you. Transfer you to a different department. Make your life miserable until you quit." She reached for my hand, squeezing it. I'm sorry, Elena. I wish it didn't have to be this way. I nodded. I understood. The board didn't care about our feelings. They cared about power, about appearances, about maintaining the alpha-dominated status quo. Okay, I said, my voice steady. Strictly professional. She leaned forward and kissed me. A goodbye kiss, soft, gentle, full of promise. I don't want this to be goodbye, she said. Not forever. Me neither, I said. But we both knew the truth. In this world, some secrets were too dangerous to keep. Some loves were too risky to pursue. Or so we thought. The next 6 months were torture. Strictly professional, my ass. We worked together every day, but it was like we were living in parallel universes. She was the CEO, I was the director. We talked about numbers and projections and strategy, but we never talked about the nights we'd spent together. Never talked about the way her scent still made my pulse race, or the way her eyes still lingered on me when she thought no one was looking. But the tension was there. Thick, palpable, impossible to ignore. It hung in the air during meetings, crackled in the hallway, simmered in the silence of her office. We were both pretending we didn't care, pretending we didn't want more, pretending that the strictly professional line wasn't killing us. And then, everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my office, working on the Q4 projections, when my phone rang. It was Soren's assistant. Ms. Marquez, Ms. Hale needs you in her office. Immediately. My heart raced. This wasn't a scheduled meeting. Something was wrong. I rushed to her office and found her sitting at her desk, her head in her hands. Her scent was a mess, sharp, chaotic, full of grief. Alpha distress. Soren? I said, stepping inside. What's wrong? She looked up, and her eyes were red. My sister. She's in the hospital. Car accident. She's an Omega. She's in heat, and her mate left her. She's alone, and she's scared. My heart went out to her. I knew how close Soren was to her sister. She'd talked about her once, late at night in the bar. I'm so sorry, I said. Do you need to go? I can cover the meeting this afternoon. She shook her head. I can't. The merger vote is tomorrow. I can't leave now. But she needs me. She needs an alpha to calm her down, to help her through the heat. Her mate's a coward, and my parents are out of the country. I don't know what to do. I hesitated. I was a beta. I couldn't help with the heat, not physically. But I could help her. I'll go, I said. I'll stay with her until you can get there. I'll bring her suppressants. I'll keep her company. Whatever she needs. Soren's eyes widened. You do that? For me. For you, I said. And for her. No one should be alone during heat. She stood, and suddenly she was in my arms. Her scent wrapped around me, warm and grateful, and I held her tight. Thank you, she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do, I said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I left her office, grabbed my coat, and headed to the hospital. Soren's sister, Lila, was in a private room, her body trembling with heat. Her scent was sweet and frantic, like jasmine in a storm. Hi, I said, stepping inside. I'm Elena, Soren's friend. Lila looked up, her eyes glassy. You're a beta, she said, her voice weak. I am, I said, sitting next to her. But I brought suppressants. And water. And I'm here to talk if you want. She nodded, and I helped her take the suppressants. We talked for hours about Soren, about her mate, about the unfairness of being an Omega in a world that treated them like property. Lila cried, and I held her. I didn't have alpha pheromones to calm her, but I had presence. I had listening ears. I had care. And it was enough. By the time Soren arrived that evening, Lila was asleep. She walked into the room, and her eyes met mine. There was no professional distance now, no alpha mask, no beta armor. Just gratitude. Just longing. Just us. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. "I'm glad I could help," I said. We stood there, watching Lila sleep, the tension between us thick and sweet. And then Soren reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. "Elena," she said, her eyes never leaving mine. "I can't do this anymore. The strictly professional thing. I can't pretend I don't care about you. I can't pretend I don't want you. I'm tired of hiding. Tired of lying. Tired of letting the board dictate how I feel." My heart raced. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," she said, squeezing my hand. "I'm going to tell the board. I'm going to tell them that I'm in love with you. That we're together. And if they don't like it, they can fire me. I'd rather lose my job than lose you." Tears filled my eyes. "Soren, you can't." "I can," she said. "And I will. Because you're worth it. More than any CEO title, more than any merger, more than any rule or policy. You're worth it." I leaned forward and kissed her. A kiss full of hope, full of promise, full of love. "I'm in love with you too," I said. She smiled and kissed me back. And in that moment, I knew that the risks didn't matter. The rules didn't matter. The board didn't matter. All that mattered was us. The board meeting was a disaster. Soren walked in, holding my hand, and announced our relationship. The room erupted in chaos. Alpha board members shouted about conflict of interest, about company policy, about the bad example we were setting. Beta board members stayed silent, afraid to take sides. Omega board members, all two of them, offered weak support, but it was drowned out by the alpha outrage. "This is unacceptable," Soren said. Richard, the board chair, his alpha scent flaring. "You're the CEO. You can't be in a relationship with a subordinate. It's a breach of trust." "Says who?" Soren said, her voice calm but firm. "The same policies that allow alphas to sleep with their secretaries without consequence? The same policies that promote alpha men over qualified beta and omega women? The same policies that treat relationships between women like they're a threat to the company." Richard's face turned red. "That's not the point." "It is the point," Soren said. "Elena earned her promotion on merit. She's one of the best directors this company has ever had. And our relationship doesn't change that. We're professionals. We can separate our personal lives from our work. But if you can't accept that, then I resign." Gasps filled the room. No one resigned from the CEO position of a Fortune 500 company, especially not alpha CEOs. Richard stared at her, his eyes narrowing. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Soren said, squeezing my hand. "I'd rather work at a coffee shop than stay in a company that values outdated policies over the happiness of its employees. I'd rather lose everything than lose her." For a long minute, the room was silent. Then one of the Omega board members spoke up. "I support you, Soren. Love shouldn't be a firing offense. And Elena is more than qualified for her job." Another board member, this one a beta, nodded. "I agree. We're in the 21st century. It's time we update our policies." One by one, the board members started to agree. Reluctantly at first, but then with more conviction. Richard was outvoted. The meeting adjourned, and we walked out hand in hand. The hallway was quiet, but I could feel the eyes on us, the curiosity, the surprise, the approval. "We did it," I said, smiling. "We did," Soren said, kissing me. "And we're not done. We're going to change this company. Change this world. One policy at a time." And we did. Over the next year, we worked together to update the company's policies, banning discrimination based on secondary gender, promoting more beta and omega employees to leadership positions, creating safe spaces for LGBTQ plus employees. We faced pushback, of course, old-fashioned alphas who didn't want to give up their power, critics who thought we were destroying the company. But we didn't back down. We fought for what was right together. And through it all, our love grew. We no longer had to hide, no more secret meetings, no more stolen kisses, no more pretending. We were Soren and Elena, CEO and director, Alpha and Beta, partners in work and in love. It wasn't always easy. We had arguments, we had disagreements, we had moments where the pressure of being trailblazers felt overwhelming. But we had each other. We had the memory of that first night in the bar, of the boardroom where everything changed, of the hospital room where we realized we couldn't live without each other. And that was enough. One night, we were sitting on the balcony of Soren's penthouse, watching the city lights. Her arm was around me, her scent warm and familiar, and I was leaning against her chest. "Remember when we thought this was impossible?" I said. She laughed, pressing a kiss to my hair. "Remember when you called me Miss Hale like it was a curse?" I smiled. "You deserved it. You were so arrogant. And you were so uptight," she said, nudging me. "But I loved it. Still do." I turned to face her and kissed her. Slow, deep, full of all the love we'd fought for. "I love you," I said. "I love you too," she said, her eyes soft. More than any board meeting, more than any merger, more than any rule or policy. More than anything. And as we kissed under the stars, I knew that some risks were worth taking. Some secrets were worth sharing. Some loves were worth fighting for. Her pheromones hadn't stayed trapped in that bar. They'd followed me into the boardroom, into the hallway, into her office, into my heart. And I wouldn't have it any other way. The first time we held hands in the office hallway, I expected stares, whispers, judgment. Instead, Mia from HR gave us a thumbs up. Javier, my team's lead analyst, the same man who joked about sleeping to the top 6 months prior, nodded and said, "About time." Even Richard, the former board chair, avoided eye contact but didn't snarl. It was as if the company had been holding its breath, waiting for us to stop pretending. But progress is never linear. 3 weeks after the board meeting, a leak hit the press. Fortune 500 CEO breaks policy, romance with beta director undermines company integrity, blared the headline. Attached was the photo Mark had taken at the holiday party, Soren's hand in my hair, our lips pressed together, the hallway's fairy lights casting a soft glow over our scandalous moment. The article quoted anonymous sources, alpha leadership compromised by emotional ties, beta director's promotion called into question, and ended with a demand for Soren's resignation. My phone blew up with texts. Colleagues asking if it was true. Reporters begging for comments. My mother, panic-stricken, calling to say, "Elena, beta-alpha relationships never work. They'll eat you alive." I found Soren in her office, her fists clenched around the newspaper, her vetiver sent sharp with rage. "It was Richard," she said, without looking up. "He's been feeding info to the press since the vote. Wants to take back control." I closed the door, leaning against it to block out the noise of the office. "What do we do?" She finally met my eyes, her anger fading into something softer, fear, maybe, or guilt. I should have anticipated this. Alphas like him don't lose gracefully. She stood, walking to where I was, her hands brushing mine. But we fight back. Together. That's how we found ourselves in a press conference 2 days later, standing side by side at a podium, cameras flashing. Soren spoke first, her voice steady, her pheromones controlled but unyielding. "My relationship with Director Marquez is consensual, professional, and has never impacted our work. Elena's promotion was earned through 4 years of exceptional performance, data that speaks for itself. As for the policy breach, we've worked with the board to update those policies because love shouldn't be a fireable offense. Not for alphas, not for betas, not for anyone. Then she stepped back and nodded at me. It was my turn to speak, my turn to stop hiding, to own my truth. I've spent my career proving that beta doesn't mean less capable, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I've fought for every promotion, every project, every win. And yes, I'm in love with Soren Hale. But that love doesn't make me weak. It makes me stronger. Because when you have someone who sees you, not as a beta, not as a director, but as you don't just work harder. You fight harder. For yourself, for each other, for the kind of world where everyone gets to be both professional and human. The room went quiet. Then, a reporter raised her hand. Do you think this will hurt the company's merger with Vostech? Soren squeezed my hand. Vostech CEO is a married Omega Beta couple. They called this morning to say they're more excited than ever to partner with a company that values authenticity. Laughter broke out. Relief washed over me, warm and bright. We weren't just surviving, we were winning. After the press conference, we walked back to the office, our hands still clasped. The hallway was quiet, but this time, it wasn't tension, it was respect. Colleagues stopped to congratulate us, to thank us for changing things. Even Mark, from IT, approached me, his head down. I'm sorry, he said. I shouldn't have taken that photo. Richard pressured me. Said he'd fire me if I didn't. I nodded, accepting his apology. Just don't do it again. Soren's hand tightened around mine. And if he does, come to us. No one should be forced to choose between their job and their integrity. Mark left, and Soren turned to me, her lips curving into a smile. See? We're making a difference. I kissed her, quick and soft, in the middle of the hallway. We are. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Richard's not done yet. She was right. Over the next month, Richard launched a campaign to oust Soren, sending memos to shareholders questioning her leadership, spreading rumors about chaos in the market division, even trying to poach key team members. But Soren didn't back down. She held town halls, shared transparent updates on the merger, and reminded everyone why she'd been hired in the first place. Results. And results we delivered. My team's Q4 projections exceeded targets by 15%. The Vostech merger closed ahead of schedule, adding $200 million to the company's valuation. Richard's support dwindled, until finally, he resigned from the board, muttering about a company gone woke. We celebrated in Soren's penthouse, just the two of us. Bottle of whiskey, takeout sushi, the city lights glittering below. We did it, she said, pouring me a drink. Richard's gone. The policies are updated. The company's thriving. I clinked my glass against hers. We did it. I paused, staring at her at the way her hair fell loose around her shoulders, at the faint smile on her lips, at the way her scent wrapped around me like a home. But you know what's the best part? What? That I don't have to sneak out of your apartment at 5 a.m. anymore. She laughed, leaning across the table to kiss me. No. Now you can stay as long as you want. That night, we didn't just make love, we made promises. Promises to keep fighting, to keep growing, to never go back to hiding. Promises that our love wouldn't be defined by our secondary genders, or our job titles, or the opinions of others. But promises are easy to make. Keeping them is harder, especially when biology gets in the way. It happened 3 months later, during Soren's rut. She'd been on suppressants as usual, but a last-minute trip to Tokyo for the merger had thrown off her schedule. I came home to her penthouse after work to find the door unlocked, the lights dim, her scent thick and overwhelming, vetiver sharpened with need, raw and unfiltered. "Soren?" I called, stepping inside. She was on the couch, her suit jacket discarded, her shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Her eyes were dark, her breathing heavy. "Elena," she said, her voice rough. "I tried to take the suppressant, but it's not working. The rut's too strong." I approached slowly, my heart racing. I'd never seen her like this, alpha rut in full force, no control, no mask. Vulnerable. "What do you need?" She reached for me, pulling me onto the couch next to her. "You. Just you. Your scent. Your touch. Please." Beta immunity only goes so far. I could feel the pull of her pheromones, warm and urgent, making my skin tingle. But I was scared I wouldn't be enough, scared I'd do something wrong, scared that this raw, primal part of her would change how she saw me. "I'm not an alpha," I said, my voice shaky. I can't calm you down the way another alpha could." She cupped my cheek, her thumb brushing my lower lip. "You don't get it, do you?" she said, her eyes softening. "It's not about being an alpha. It's about being you. Your scent, neutral, steady, safe. It's the only thing that's ever calmed me during rut. Not suppressants, not other alphas, not anything. Just you." Her words washed over me, warm and reassuring. I leaned into her touch, pressing my lips to hers. "Okay," I said. "I'm here." We spent the next 2 days in her penthouse, tangled in sheets and each other's arms. She was gentler than I expected, hungry, yes, but careful, like she was afraid of hurting me. She'd bury her face in my neck, breathing in my scent, whispering things I could barely make out, mine. "Don't leave, I love you." And I'd hold her, stroke her hair, remind her that I wasn't going anywhere. On the 3rd day, the rut faded. Soren woke up, her eyes clear, her scent back to its usual calm vetiver. She stared at me for a long minute, then said, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drag you into that. It's messy and primal and—" I cut her off with a kiss. "Don't apologize. It wasn't messy. It was intimate. I got to see a part of you that no one else does. And I loved it." She smiled, pulling me closer. "You're the only person who could say that about alpha rut and mean it." "I mean it," I said. "Because it's you. All of you, CEO Alpha. The woman who laughs at my terrible jokes. The woman who begs me to stay during rut. I love all of it. All of you." Tears filled her eyes. "I love you too, Elena. More than I ever thought possible." That's when I knew this wasn't just a relationship. It was a bond. The kind of bond that transcends secondary genders and job titles and societal expectations. The kind of bond that lasts. But bonds are tested often when you least expect it. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when Soren's mother called. I was in the kitchen, making coffee, when I heard Soren's voice rise from the living room. "No, Mom. I'm not breaking up with her. I love her." Pause. "Because she's kind and smart, and she challenges me. Because she sees me, not just as an alpha, but as a person. Because she's Elena." Another pause. "I don't care if you think beta-alpha relationships are unnatural. This is my life. My choice." She hung up, and I walked into the living room to find her sitting on the couch, her head in her hands. Her scent was a mix of sadness and anger, sharp and brittle. "My parents have never approved of anything I do," she said, without looking up. "But this is a new low. They think you're holding me back. That I should be with an alpha, someone equal." I sat next to her, putting my arm around her shoulders. "Do you care what they think?" She looked up, her eyes red. "No, but it hurts. They're my family." I leaned my forehead against hers. "Then we'll give them time. Or we won't. But whatever happens, I'm with you. Always." She kissed me, slow and deep. "Always." We didn't hear from her parents for 6 months. Then, on Christmas Eve, there was a knock at the door. Soren opened it to find her mother and father standing on the porch, soaking wet from the rain. "We're sorry," her mother said, her voice trembling. "We were wrong. We should have never judged you. Or her." Soren looked at me, her eyes wide. I nodded, smiling. "Come in," she said. That Christmas, we had dinner with Soren's parents. They asked questions about my job, about our relationship, about what it was like being a beta in a world that favored alphas. I answered honestly, and they listened. By the end of the night, Soren's father, an imposing alpha with a gruff voice, clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're good for her. Better than any alpha we could have picked." Soren squeezed my hand under the table. I could smell her scent, warm, grateful, happy. For the first time in a long time, she looked truly at peace. The next year was a year of growth. The company expanded into new markets thanks to a campaign my team designed, one that celebrated diversity, not just in gender, but in secondary genders too. We launched a mentorship program for Beta and Omega employees, helping them climb the corporate ladder. We even hosted a Pride event, with Soren as the keynote speaker. "Love is love," she said, looking right at me. "And work should be a place where you can be both successful and true to yourself." Our relationship grew too. We moved in together, into a sunlit apartment with a balcony, where we could watch the city lights and talk about our days. We fought, sometimes about work, about boundaries, about the pressure of being trailblazers, but we always made up. We learned to communicate, to listen, to be vulnerable with each other. Soren learned to let go of her alpha need to control everything. I learned to let go of my beta fear of losing control. Together, we found a balance, one that worked for us. It was on our 2-year anniversary that Soren proposed. We were back at the bar where we'd met, the same neon lights, the same live band. She got down on one knee, pulling a small box from her pocket. "Elena Marquez," she said, her voice steady, her eyes shining. 2 years ago, I met a woman who challenged me, who made me laugh, who made me forget that I had to be perfect. A woman who's my partner in work and in love and in everything. A woman who's taught me that strength isn't about being an alpha, it's about being brave enough to be yourself. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled my eyes. I nodded, unable to speak. She slipped the ring on my finger, a simple silver band with a small sapphire. "Yes," I said, finally. 1,000 times yes. The band played a love song. We kissed, surrounded by strangers who cheered and clapped. I could smell her scent, vetiver, warm and familiar, mixed with the whiskey fumes and the music. It was the same scent that had hit me in the boardroom 2 years ago, the same scent that had wrapped around me in her penthouse, in the hospital, in the press conference. The same scent that had become my home. After the bar closed, we walked home hand in hand. The city was quiet, the streets lit by streetlights. "Remember when we thought this was a mistake?" I said, laughing. Soren squeezed my hand. "Remember when you called me Miss Hale like I was the enemy?" I smiled. "You were the enemy." For, 5 minutes. She stopped, turning to face me. She put her hands on my cheeks, her thumbs brushing my tears. "I love you," she said, her voice soft. "More than any board meeting, more than any merger, more than any rule or policy. More than anything." "I love you too," I said. We kissed under the streetlights, our bodies pressed together, our scents mixing, her vetiver, my neutral beta calm, a perfect balance. For a minute, there was no work, no pressure, no expectations. Just us. 5 years later, I stood on the stage at the company's annual gala, accepting an award for innovative leadership. Soren was in the front row, smiling at me, her eyes never leaving mine. When I started here, I thought success meant being perfect, I said, my voice steady. Being unemotional. Being beta enough to fit in. But I was wrong. Success means being brave. Being true to yourself. Being loved by your partner, by your team, by the people who believe in you. I looked at Soren. I want to thank the person who taught me that. My wife, Soren Hale. She's my boss, my partner, my best friend. She's the reason I'm standing here today. Because when you have someone who sees you and loves you and supports you, you can do anything. The room erupted in applause. Soren stood, blowing me a kiss. I could smell her scent, warm, proud, mine, even from across the room. After the gala, we danced in the ballroom, surrounded by our friends and colleagues. Remember when we hooked up in your penthouse and thought it would be a one-night stand? I said, laughing. Soren spun me around, her arms tight around my waist. Remember when you tried to sneak out at 5 a.m.? I was scared, I said. Scared of what it would mean. Scared of you. She kissed me, slow and deep. I was scared too. Scared I'd mess it up. Scared you'd see me as just another alpha CEO. But we didn't mess it up. We fought for it. Together. As we danced, I thought about how far we'd come. From a one-night stand in a penthouse, to a secret relationship in the office, to a public battle for acceptance, to marriage. From two people scared of their own feelings, to two people who'd built a life together, one that was both professional and personal, both successful and loving. I thought about the beta girl who'd worked herself to the bone to prove she belonged. The alpha woman who'd learned to let go of control and embrace vulnerability. The two of us who defied expectations, broken rules, and changed a company, all because we'd fallen in love. Soren rested her head on my shoulder, her breath warm against my neck. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, I said. And as we danced to the music, I knew that some things are worth the risk. Some loves are worth fighting for. Some mistakes are actually the best things that ever happened to you. Her pheromones hadn't stayed trapped in that bar. They'd followed me into the boardroom, into the hallway, into her office, into my heart. And I wouldn't have it any other way. The end.